The saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So today what I want to do is give you an opportunity to sit in on one of the sessions that I did with a group of agents that I work with, where we're going to go through and we're going to plan out next year. We're going to talk about what our goals are, and we're going to talk about the activities that are going to help us reach those goals. If after watching this you're curious about, you'll see this referenced in here, our goal setting planner. If you'd like a copy of that, simply email me at the email below and I'll be glad to send one your way. Let's get to it. So let me get started. Glad to have all of y'all here. This is what we're going to do really is I'm going to kind of go through the standard program that I do every year and I've done for 20 years on trying to understand exactly what it is, get a vision of where we're going. I don't want to get too spiritual on you, but there's this biblical saying that says write it down so that they can follow it and they can move in that direction. So there is something psychologically about writing things down. So we're going to go through some of those processes today. Hey, to give you you guys a little bit of a behind the scenes also. I've always said that the fourth quarter is separation season. It's that season when we step away from who we are and step into hopefully who we're going to be next year. We step into and we separate ourselves from a competition, because most people, the reason why in real estate, most people that suffer from a lack of income at certain times of the year, typically that time frame is January and February. And the reason for that is because we're a product of 60 to 90 days. Just like what we talk about when we're talking about leading indicators, the activities we do today are the ones that either yield results 60, 90 days from now, or they don't. Most people, when we get to this time of year, they're like, hey, I had a pretty good year. Or they'll say, hey, listen, it's the holidays. I'm going to take it a little easy. Hey, the market's naturally slowed down. And they stop the activities and those leading indicators that lead to those things. So we'll pass this back also. Morning. And so this is what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about some of those things. Let me tell you what we're doing too, because listen, it's not just our business. A lot of times we have to understand that we operate as a whole individual. So some of the stuff I'm going to speak on specifically today is going to be on the business, but I would encourage you to set some goals personally, spiritually, financially, all of those things in those areas, and this will give you a framework for that. But one thing that I do want to talk about this morning is what we're doing as a group. So listen, I'm going to just give you all the behind the scenes. I was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was doing one of these classes either here or somewhere, and I was just hammering home on the value of discipline and the value of being focused and the value of consistency. And man, I left there, I felt so good about it. And then Tim sent me the video. And I said, wow, who is that old fat joker that's talking about discipline and focus? I said, man, I wouldn't listen to him. So here's what I did. I said, and I'm the kind that just burns all the boats. You know what I mean? So here's what I did. I started thinking about this, and I'm kind of extreme too. So I started thinking about what can I do to get better? So immediately I had this couple friends of mine that in real estate, had Andrew Undum send me this thing, had sent me information that they were doing this 75 hard program. And I was like, what in the world? First off, it sounds cool. What is that? And basically it's pretty straightforward, okay? It's 75 days discipline mentally and physically to get you in the best physical and mental shape. And when I started looking at that, I was like, 75 days. And basically it's pretty straightforward. Drink a gallon of water, work out in the morning, work out in the evenings, read 10 pages of a nonfiction book, and then have some type of diet plan, doesn't matter what it is, that you stick to. For me, I'm just going to do intermittent fasting, just watching calories, that kind of thing. So I started talking about this a little bit, and then all of a sudden, the bad thing is, as I started talking about it, I was like, well, listen, if I say this in front of everybody, now we've done 2 of these at other offices, if I show up to the Christmas party and look the same, it'll be like, man, you lie about anything, won't you? So I done burned all my bridges. I got to do it now. You know what I mean? But here's what happened too is when I first mentioned this, a couple of people said, hey, I want to be a part of that, because here's what we found is 75 days as of Monday, which is when I started this, and a few of us started this, 75 days ends up being Christmas Eve. So we're 73 days right now, y'all, from Christmas Eve. Doesn't seem crazy, but 75 days, which gets us to that first of the end of the year, where we can launch into next year with some momentum physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, activity-wise that gets our business started where we aren't coming out of the blocks, we're actually running into 2023. So we're doing that. If anybody's interested, we've got a little text group. I think we got 8 or 9 or 10 of us now that are doing that. It's pretty fun to see some of those stories, and also just that group accountability always helps. So that's what we're doing as far as I'm doing personally. And then what I'm doing also, and I've done every year, I was blessed. I was blessed with my mom, who was actually staying at my house last night. I was telling her this last night with my stepfather. My mom, from the time I was 7 years old, had us write goals every year, written goals. And she had us, and it was like, literally, it was like, you're 7 years old, it was like, make A's, don't get bad report on my report card, whatever it was. But it was that fundamental thing, and we had to review it every quarter. And I look back now and I was like, man, this was incredible for me to have that foundation, because now I always think about those things. I keep my goals for the year, every area of my life, you know what I mean? When it's talking about relationships, like with my wife, some of y'all have heard this, man. Tasha and I have been married 26 years. Y'all can understand. My parents, it took them 6 marriages between the two of them to get to 25 years. Man, I'm trying to break some stuff around here. I got to focus on that and be purposeful in it. So literally, I write those goals out about date nights, about trips, or about weekends, or about whatever. And so we're going to go through some things today, mostly on our business portion, because I want to give you a foundation. And we're not just going to talk about big stuff, okay? Here's what I hate is it's easy to write things down, and I want to make $500,000 next year, and then you're like, wow, that's great, and then you go on and you don't have a plan of action. So what we want to do today is I want to give you some simple steps that we can grade this on a monthly basis. Are we in the right direction? Weekly and even daily basis. So that's what we're going to do. So if you can, we're going to kind of go through this portion here. This is pretty simple and straightforward. Listen, I think most of us have heard about SMART goals. And if you don't have a copy of this, I've got a couple up here if we need a couple extra. Zane, I'll get you one. And so basically, SMART goals are just, listen, this is just the outline. What makes a good goal? Something that is specific. What is it that we want to accomplish? Measurable, easy to measure. Achievable, is it doable? Because listen, you can have pie in the sky, and if you can't get there, it just frustrates you. We want something that's achievable. It's going to push us, but it is achievable. Relevant, does it do it? Look at that, that's me. I need to work on that. Does it align with your other goals? And also time bound, what is the time frame for achievement? These are just setting specific things. This is why I like annual goals, but I like annual goals from a standpoint that we can break them down to monthly. I used to keep on a board in my office, and this was old school when we would go up to Walmart in Funiac, and we buy the what's the little poster boards, and I would literally take it the first of the year and I would color out number of listings goals per month. And I would just put a box in there, and then every time I got one, I could go in there and I could color it in. I would color it in. Man, it felt so good. Color those things in, you know what I mean? So I literally just wanted to keep that stuff in front of me. So when we're doing these, we want to keep them in front of us, and we want to be able to measure, are we in line with whatever those goals are? Now listen, this is going to be a little bit broad. If any of y'all want to get really down and dirty on this and really want to get specific, just let me know. I'll be glad to sit down with you. I love doing that stuff, to be honest. And just get very specific on exactly what it is you want to do. So let's start with a couple things. Now these are fill in the blank. Listen, if you don't want to fill this in with people around you, that's fine. You can do it later. I'm going to give you some foundational things we can do though. First thing is, and listen, I always started with this. I know we say this is a relationship business, but listen, if we aren't making money, we're doing it wrong. If we aren't making money, then we are probably in this business where we're generating relationships, but those relationships are what will generate the income. So we want to start with, what is your desired income? What is it that you want to make next year? And then I want to come back and I want to say, what is your average sales price? Because listen, your average sales price is going to give us an idea. I'm going to use some numbers just to make it easy, okay? Let's say that your average sales price, because it's different for every single person. You can figure this out by what was your average sales price the last couple of years. If you're new to the business, you can figure out what's the average sales price for the market, and then I would take that and put it in half because you're starting out. What is it that you're doing to understand what it is your average sales price? The reason we want that is because now we can start working backwards on these numbers, okay? And then the next portion is net dollars to you per transaction after splits. Here's how we figure this, okay? I'm just going to use round numbers here. If your average sales price is $1 million, whatever the commission rate is, 2.5%, you got 25,000 gross times your split, that's going to give you what is your net dollar per transaction. Now, the reason we want that is because now we can back this in and we can figure out how many transactions do we need to meet that goal that we set as far as income, okay? So number of transactions needed to meet income goal. So our desired income that we have up top, divided by the net dollars per transaction, and is going to give us how many transactions we need. Now I'm going to use this because I got that Walton County education. Let's just say that you want 24 transactions, okay? If we want 24 transactions, mentally it's pretty easy for me to say, okay, there's 12 months, we need 2 transactions per month. Easy to start running those things. Now the annual conversations goal. Our transaction goal is going to tell us how many conversations we need. Industry averages, let me just say this, if you're in this room, you're not average, but let's use those numbers to be conservative. Industry averages are that it takes 50 real estate related conversations to equal 1 real estate transaction. Now, I'll say this, I've not seen anybody, you may get it on your first 10 conversations, you may hit lightning in a bottle, it may take 100, but if you do the number of conversations over the yearly time frame, I've not found anybody that it didn't deviate more than 10 calls either higher or lower than this, as long as you're making those. And here's the thing is, it may be higher when you start making these calls, or you're not as comfortable making these calls because you're learning those things. You're seeing how people are reacting. Even those of us that are seasoned, when I first started tracking this, because I was tracking it, the conversations were not everything I wanted to be. It was almost like it was a little forced. Then it just becomes natural. So just understand that the numbers will work. So if we know that our annual, I'm just going to use that again, that 24 transactions, and we know that we need to have 50 conversations per transaction, now we know that we need to have 1,200, just using that example, 1,200 conversations for the year. The reason I did that, y'all see, I got Walton County education, but I'm not dumb. So now it's easy. We need 1,200 conversations. Now there's 12 months in a year. Think about this. So all we need is 100 real estate related conversations per month to get 2 transactions per month. Now, think about it this way, 4 weeks in a year, and listen, that's based on 48 weeks. We're gonna have some weeks off. So we got 48 weeks, we got 12 months, we got 100 calls and conversations needed. Now all we need literally is 25 conversations per week. Now here's the problem is, does that sound small? But then here's what happens is we come in and we like, gosh, I really need to post to social media. And we spend 2 hours doing that and we ain't talked to anybody. And then we say, you know what? I want to make sure this flyer looks really good for this open house. We spend an hour on it. And then we go back and we say, you know what? I want to send this mailer, and we spend an entire day and we don't talk to a single person, but we get that mailer just like we want it. But we aren't focusing on what's truly important, which is the conversations. We had this guy that came in, a couple friends of mine, one from Baton Rouge, one from up in Chattanooga, one from Atlanta. They were all staying over at Watercolor. This is about 3 years ago. We'd had this great dinner. We had a great couple bottles of wine. We're just hanging out, just talking. They had a friend of ours, the guy from Baton Rouge had a friend of his there, and he was an old Cajun, South Louisiana guy. He ran the largest independent insurance company, I believe, in the state of Louisiana. Had a couple, 300 agents that worked for him. And he said, he's just sitting there the whole time. He hadn't said a word, you know. And he said, well, let me tell you what I think. When it was like E.F. Hutton, everybody just, you know, what's he going to say here? He said, this is what I tell my agents. You see this phone right here? He said, it's pretty simple. You know what that is? When that phone's sitting on the table? That's broke. You know what this is? Rich. Broke, rich. And I thought to myself, that is the smartest thing I've ever heard. Every single time in my life that I've had success, it was because I was having more conversations. I was reacting and I was talking to more people, and it created more opportunities. So ultimately, when we're focusing on these conversations, it really does come down to a numbers game. How many people are you talking to and adding value to? Price is going to give us talking points on the market. Next week, JD and Hunter and I are going to sit around and talk about how to have conversations. We're going to give y'all the opportunities. Plus, y'all are smart. Y'all know how to do this. Y'all know people. You can check in. You can ask them if they're going to the game next week. You know, you can talk to them about what's going on. Just being real and having conversations. And ultimately, sooner or later, it's going to come back to, hey, tell me how the market's doing. Sooner or later, it's going to come back to you just simply saying, hey, do y'all still love the house? It's going to give us opportunities. So when we're doing this down, think about that. 24 transactions, y'all, breaks down to 5 per month. Let me tell you what I used to do, 5 per day. This is what I used to do. Because listen, there are going to be days where we've got showings, we've got family stuff, we all got stuff going on. We got issues that we're dealing with. For me, I was basing it on 5 days. Let me just say this, if you're going to have 24 transactions, you're not going to work 5 days a week. Let's be real. It's going to be 6 or 7, right? When we first had the conversion over, Gino Blafari, who now has just been so good to me, we first started, he said, hey, Jimmy, good news. good news. We operate off the biblical plan here. And I said, oh, what's that? He said, we just work, just like they said, 6 days on, 1 day off. I said, okay, well, I'd do that. That's no problem for me. He said, and the good news also is you only got to work a half a day. I said, oh, well, I work more than that. He said, well, that's 12 hours, is half a day. So we just going to work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. So understanding that, what I did is that I knew I had 5 days a week that I was planning these. So on my to-do list every morning, it was conversation 1, conversation 2, conversation 3. I had those 5 as the top 5 of my to-dos every single day. When I got to the end of the week, because I was I was understanding this, I was tracking this, and what we track and what we keep our eyes on will absolutely give us results every single time. I would get to Friday and I'd be, oh my gosh, I've only had 17 calls this week, or I've true conversations. I'm talking to a lot of people, but am I talking about real estate to 25 people? And so then at the end of the week on Saturdays, if I was there, I didn't want to get into Monday and not have done what I was going to do the previous week. So Saturdays and Sundays, I made sure that I had all 25, or whatever that goal is for you, done. I've got an extra couple days there to make some things up. So that's what I did with that. Now the question becomes, how are we going to generate those? Because listen, we can all talk about this. We can all go have 5 conversations today, but 20 days from now, after we talk to everybody we know, how are we going to have these conversations? What are we going to do? So this list I did on the next page, see how clever I am? 23 for 2023. I got 23 ideas. Now, there's a bunch more of these, obviously, but most people don't need to be taught, they need to be reminded. So what I want to do is just hopefully cue some things in your mind on some ways that you can have these conversations, okay? Number 1, past clients, easiest. They know, like, and trust you already. Pick the low-hanging fruit. Just check in on them. Hey, just check in to see if you guys still love the house. Hey, how's the family doing? Hey, are you guys coming to town anytime soon? Just having these conversations always generates opportunities. Listen, and when I say these are real estate related conversations, it'll come to that. Don't go in with trying to sell them something, list a house, do anything. Just have general conversations, and I'll promise you it will come up that you have an opportunity to talk about real estate. They're going to ask you, how's the market doing? Hey, it seems like things are changing. What are you seeing out there? Sphere of influence, another one. One of the things that I loved, I did an interview with Heidi Harris. I don't know if y'all saw this a couple weeks ago, which was great. And because she made this comment to me, she said, we were talking about buying leads, and buying all these leads, and there's 100 million leads sold, and there's only 5 million transactions a year. All these leads are being sold to a bunch of people. She said, oh, I don't buy leads, I buy lunch. Jay does this. Jay says part of his goals every week when our accountability group is that he's going to have coffee or cocktail with 1 or 2 people every single week. He's having those interactions, those personal relationships. Relationships take time, and they take being in front of people too. It's hard to build, any of y'all ever have one of college long-term relationships? It doesn't always work out great. You know what I mean? It takes time being with somebody to build a true relationship. So what are we doing? If we believe that we're in a relationship business, we should make relationships our business. This is our opportunity to do those things. So your sphere of influence, make sure you're checking in with those folks. Checking in just as a human being. Remember when COVID hit, those of you that were here, we came in here, J.D. Hunter and Price and I, it was so funny. Anyway, we had to take a measuring tape so that we wouldn't sit 6 feet from each other because we were going to be judged on it. And we sat in here and we talked about, hey, listen, what can we do right now? Biggest thing we talked about then was you should just check in on people. It's still the same thing. Just check in on people. See how they're doing. Be a friend. Be someone, and I promise you're going to get opportunities. Open houses. Listen, open houses are just such a great way. Getting in front of people. It's one thing to make a phone call, but if you're standing face to face to someone, you can tell if they're interested, you can tell if they're motivated, you can tell if they're down the road, most people can, or if they're ready to do something right now. Open houses are a great way to generate these conversations. We're having some of these that'll have, 20 people this time of year even, 10, 20 people. And let me just say this, and if you only have one person, it only takes one. And I'll promise you they're more likely to walk in that open house than they are in the office. So it's getting out and being where the waves are to be able to catch them. Circle unsolicited CMAs. I talk about this so much I don't even want to say it, but I'm just telling y'all. This is the time of year I did that, where I did one unsolicited video CMAs. If you haven't heard how I do it, I'll be glad to sit down and show you those. Generated $11 million, and this is in 2018 when prices were well under half of this that they are right now. doing those unsolicited, just adding value out to people, homeowners, is a great way. Circle prospecting, you all know what this is. Literally just taking a property, if you got an open house, and calling the people around it. If you've got something that came on the market as a new listing, talking to the neighbors, talking to someone that's around, circling around a house if something's sold. Simply having those conversations, giving them information. Our area is a little unique because most people are out of town. So when we call them, we say, hey, I don't know if you saw that the house 4 doors down just closed yesterday. It really is affecting, the value of your place. Just letting the neighbors know. Odds are they haven't heard about it. Whereas in a traditional market, they saw the sign go up. They saw the sold sign go up. They see the moving truck. Here we have a unique opportunity really to add value to people through making those phone calls. Door knocking. Listen, I'm going to go old school on y'all here. I used to love door knocking because it gives you the opportunity to literally be face-to-face with people. Here's a perfect example of how to do that. Again, instead of doing the circle prospecting where you're calling, going the day before you're going to have an open house and knocking on the doors. It could be renters, it could be owners. And just saying, hey, just want to let you know, tomorrow from 2 to 5, I'm going to be having an open house over here. I'm just dropping some flyers off to make sure if you guys would like to stop by, I'd love to see you. Simple as that. And then the old Columbo deal, especially if they're owners, is I'd be the worst realtor in the world if I didn't at least ask if there's a price where you might sell your house. I'm expecting a lot of activity on this. That's just a simple conversation that you'd be amazed at what it offers for you, okay? And then be where the leads are. Some of y'all know Scott Crompton. This is what's funny. I'm going to tell you what Scott and I used to do, and then I'm going to tell you what I did really old school. Scott and I used to sit in the old office over there where Shipman, that group, is now, and we would sit in that office, and I'd say, man, I'm getting hungry. He'd say, hey, let's go get some lunch. I'd say, okay, here's what we're going to do, though. We're going to have a little competition because I'm a competitive person. I said, we're going to start at the front of Seaside at Bud and Alley's. You go left, I go right. When we get to Great Southern, we're going to have 30 minutes. When we get to Great Southern, the person who has the least amount of contact information has to buy lunch. And we just go there, just talk to people. I was like, I'll take the right because that's where the real estate board was, and so that was pretty easy. Have those conversations. And we did this day after day, and we would just accumulate these people, these leads, these potential clients that we would add to our database. Before that, what I used to do, and you can still do this, I would go over there back in the day, and there's a bench, there used to be a bench, I don't know if it's still there, right beside the real estate board at Seaside. There's one of them over in Rosemary, there's one at Seaside. What I did back in the day, I would call and I would say, hey, I know the agents over there, with Davis Properties back then. I'd say, hey, I think I might have somebody that want to see that house at whatever the address was in Seaside. Is it vacant where I could go ahead and get a code just in case? Yeah, let me get you a code. I'd just go get me a little ice cream, I sit down on that bench and I just start slowly eating that ice cream before it drip off on me. And then somebody would walk up and they'd start looking at that sign like this. I say, hey, where y'all from? Say, oh, we're from so-and-so. Say, how long y'all been coming down? Oh, we've been coming down forever. The old JD line. Please tell me y'all bought something in the last 10 years since you've been coming down. And they say, no, we've been thinking about it. Please tell me you're not going to say this again 10 years from now. And then I'd say, hey, by the way, I was just stopping by here. That house up there on the corner right there, that one that's the picture right there, I've actually got a code for it because if y'all wanted to see it this afternoon, we could possibly get in there and see that. Oh, well, that'd be nice. And then boom, had somebody. Or they say, no, not today. Well, listen, if there's something I can do, love to keep in touch. It was just a way for me to generate those people. Just be where the people are. Where are the people? Odds are, this is kind of old and different than it used to be. They're not going to walk in the office. The best client that I've ever had was someone that I was just out doing what I do. My daughter was having her high school graduation pictures on the beach over in Seaside. My job as the dad was literally just to pay for this. You know what I mean? My wife's over there prepping her and they're taking photos at sunset and everything. So I'm just sitting off, just being real. I'm sitting off to the side with my cold drink watching this, And at about that time, this guy walks by and he's got his little 4-year-old daughter, 3 or 4-year-old daughter by hand, and they're walking down the beach. I said, hey man, don't blink. He said, what are you talking about? I said, that's my daughter right there getting her high school graduation pictures. I said, man, seems like yesterday, like that. I was doing what you're doing right now. Just don't blink, man. I'm telling you, just take advantage of it. And we just started talking. And all of a sudden, next thing I know, I followed up with him. We had lunch while he was there this week. He ended up sending me, on top of what he bought, sending and buying between his referrals and him over $20 million over the next 3 years. All I did was just have a conversation. I wasn't talking about real estate. Eventually he's like, you live here? I was like, yeah. He's like, what do you do? I was like, yeah, I'm in real estate, That led to the conversation. Just be where the people are. We've got agents, not naming any names, we've got agents that, one agent, she has built her business on happy hours. Now listen, I couldn't do that because I got a little bit of an addictive personality. But she shows up at happy hours, sits at the bar at these places where all these folks are with friends of hers or by herself, and she just starts having conversation with the couple that sits down or the person that sits down. And every single time she'll call me and say, I got another one last night. I'm like, really? My gosh. She's just making those conversations, building those relationships. Whatever it is for you. I can remember there were agents that have built their business by being a part of the PTA. Whatever it is that you're into, just be into it and be all that you can be while you're there. You'll be amazed. Expired listings. And listen, I don't want to dwell on this too much, but now is the time to be building a program for following up with expired listings or for sale by owners, because they didn't need us in the past. Those things, it wasn't expiring. And to be perfectly frank, for sale by owners, they could put a sign in the yard and it'd be sold in 24 to 48 hours 2 years ago, last year even. They need us right now, because here's what's happening for all those folks now. Either they can't sell it or they're getting these crazy lowball offers because people are looking at them like a wounded deer and they're the lion, because they're trying to take advantage of those opportunities. So those are some great places to have some conversations, generate those. Social media birthdays, instead of just posting in there happy birthday, go in and just send them a private message. Jay does this too, where he built his business on just sending a private message. Got any plans today? Listen, probably all of us in here have gotten those messages from Jay at some point in our lives. You know what I mean? He does it religiously. He has built his business, and Jay's going to sell $25 million in his second year. And he's just doing the fundamentals, having those conversations, standing out. For rent by owners are a great place as well. For rent by owners, these are folks that are renting properties. Now listen, here's what an investor is. Investors are like sharks. They don't sit still. And I don't mean that in the bad way. They are either thinking that they need to reposition, they're either in a cash crunch, or they're trying to buy more. Rarely are they sitting still saying, oh, we're all good. So literally calling these for rent by owners and just saying, hey, just checking in with you. I saw where you had this place for rent. Have you thought about selling this place? And then just having that conversation. Hey, you may be surprised where the value is. And then if they say, no, I love this place, I don't blame you. Is there a certain type of place you're looking for? And that if you could find it, you'd be interested in buying. Now we're building those lists. These are those conversations. Also, renters that moved in 6 months ago. Typically a rental is going to be a year time frame. If you go into MLS, if you go into wherever, you can see all of these listings where they were rented 6 months ago. Those folks, as well as the owners, are considering, what are we going to do when this lease ends? Are we going to sell it or are we going to re-rent it? The renters are thinking, are we going to buy or are we going to keep renting? So these are great conversations to have as well. Join and start a leads group. Leads groups are where you have the group of people that comes together. Could be in different industries, could be the mortgage industry, could be some type of home services. The price of admission to the weekly or monthly meetings in these is to bring someone a referral. Odds are if you're in there, you'll start receiving those referrals as well. Leads groups are a great way to start building your business and growing with other people. Social media local groups. These are, again, finding these local groups and just adding value. Just going in and answering the questions when somebody says, hey, can somebody tell me about what the school system's like? Can somebody tell me the best place, or help me find a plumber, or do these things? Just add value in these groups. They will generate opportunities for you to have conversations that can lead to additional business. I talk about social media marketing needs post also. We all got buyers. Post out there. Hey, I've got a great family. I'll just give y'all, like right now, I've got a guy that I'd worked with years ago, and I've got somebody helping me with it. He's got $1.7 million that he has to buy now because he's in 1031. Going out and posting that and saying, hey, if anybody knows of anything that is might be off market or coming to market that's in this range, I've got a great guy that's looking for his family to relocate here. Those type of things, just posting those out there, you'd be amazed. You know what people do too when you post like, hey, coming soon house in so-and-so. They'll put people's names, they like call them out, they just tag them. I mean, it's like a red flag. They're like, look, here she is, she's looking to buy that kind of place. Here she is, they've got that kind of place. So posting those posts is important and gives you opportunities as well. Buying online leads. Listen, buying leads is not a bad thing. Track your numbers. online leads are typically going to be, the quality of those online leads is going to be directly proportional to the quality of your follow-up. So don't just buy leads and think that the things are going to just fall in your lap. You've got to create opportunities where you've got a follow-up system in place and where you continuously add value. OpCity, for those of you that, if you don't want to buy leads, we have OpCity. I will tell you, this is going to be a low-quality lead when you start, but this is a system where basically Realtor.com realized this OpCity company was the biggest purchaser they had of leads. OpCity was buying the leads, they were nurturing those, and then they were referring them to people. And Realtor.com said, kind of like that. They went and bought them. So you're going to pay a 35% referral fee, but they're going to do the nurturing. You're going to have about 6 or 7 agents that you're competing with. And I'll tell you this, they don't get paid unless you close. So they're going to look for, on the first leads they send you, they're going to be lower quality leads. And they're going to be someone they're looking to see if you'll communicate. And once you do that, we've had people, Witt in here just closed his first one. It was like a $40,000 or $50,000 lot in Chipley or somewhere. And he's like, look, I'm going to do it because I want to elevate up. So now, here he is. Now, all of a sudden, he's closed one. Guess what happens? Quality of the leads went up because they know that he can close them. They know that he's going to communicate. So just understand that it's a long-term process. Everything we've talked about is lower hanging fruit. We're getting now to some higher hanging fruit. Ask for leads from company database. Listen, if you just want leads, okay, let me know. We've got a group of leads that we paid for that people didn't follow up on, or they never called, or they just were, we call them orphaned. They just were, nobody ever took care of them. So we've got a group of those if you want some of those. When Lori started, Lori said, I want can you get me some of those leads so I can start talking to some people? And we got 50 the first time? 50 leads originally. And you had the 1 or 2 closings out of that? Had 3 closings out of those 50 leads because these are people that nobody had followed up on. And Lori was like a little bulldog on their ankle. They couldn't shake her off. And how much? One of them was $3.2 million. So listen, if you're there and you're like, I just don't have anybody to talk to, let us know. I'll get you some leads. We don't have a lead problem. We have a follow-up and execution problem. There are tons of leads out there. The quality of the leads is directly proportional to the quality of the follow-up. Now listen, I'm not going to tell you the 50 I send you going to get you 3 closings. That was great, but a lot of that is credited to Lori because those people have been sitting in that database for years without anybody contacting them. All right, call agents in feeder markets. Referrals. This is when transactions go down, we should all look for opportunities to generate additional revenue. One of the biggest ways is through referrals, okay? Referrals from other places, or just simply asking the question of the people we're talking to, hey, I know y'all are buying a place down here. Are you going to keep your place in Atlanta? Are you guys going to keep your place in Nashville? What are you guys thinking about that? So it gives us the opportunity. When you build those relationships with those agents, in feeder markets, it absolutely gives you opportunities to send referrals and to receive referrals as well. And then DM social media connections. Listen, just checking in on people is just so important. One thing is be where the people are. We were talking about that. If you see that you've got somebody that posts all the time on Instagram or on Facebook, communicate with them through Messenger. Communicate with them direct messaging. All of those give us additional opportunities. I mentioned about the buy lunch. Also, be aware of everyone around you. Make sure that everything around you, when we focus on certain things, we begin to see more of it. If we're focused on the fact that we're looking for opportunities to talk to people, I'll promise you we'll all of a sudden begin to notice those things a little bit more. I always tell the story about my wife. My brother owned Chevrolet dealership up in Defina. He was one of the owners up there. And so all I ever drove was Chevrolets, But my wife, she's a little rogue. She wanted one of these Honda Pilots. I didn't even know what that was, She gets the Honda Pilot, silver Honda Pilot. She's driving down the road. And next day I'm driving, and I see her coming in that silver Honda Pilot. I'd never even seen one of these things. I was like, oh, there she is. Wasn't her. I pull up to the next stoplight. One pulls up. It's not even her. I was like, man, what in the world? I see 3 or 4 of them that day. I was like, did everybody go buy silver Honda Pilots yesterday? No. They were there the whole time. I just wasn't focused on it. So when we get focused on having these conversations, you'll be amazed at the opportunities that you'll have as those things come in. Now, let's go to the next page because literally I've just given you all of these ideas. But listen, this is your business. And there are certain people that are really good on the phone. There's certain people that are really good at open houses. Certain people that have great relationships and they just need to talk to their existing client in their sphere of influence. This is where it gets personal. So right in here is where we write down what are the 7 ways in the lead that you're going to generate these lead conversations. Now, here's the reason why I like doing this personally, is because there will be days where we all get into these funks. And I come into the office and I'm like, gosh, I've got my to-do list, but I'm just not sure what I should do. You know, you ever get that way? You're just like, man, I want to do something, but I'm not sure what I should do. This is the place that I would always go back to, and I'd be reminded, oh, okay, I'm going to have conversations with my sphere of influence, my past clients. I'm going to look to hold an open house. I'm going to make circle prospecting calls on that sale that just happened. Whatever it is for you, it gives you that reminder. And then if you're not growing, down on the bottom there, if you're not growing, you're dying. What training events will you be attending this year? Now listen, I'm a junkie on training events. I always thought it this way. Where I grew up in the country, we used to have a clothesline. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Some of y'all don't know what I'm talking about. Some of y'all grew up a little too good. You know what I mean? I grew up with a clothesline. And here's what would happen is, after a little while, that clothesline would begin to sag in the middle. And so what my mom used to do is we would take out there and we would have to put another post up in the middle so that we would have it where it would carry us between the sags there, if that makes sense. And then all of a sudden, sooner or later, it would just get so many of them in there, we just have to restring it. You know what I mean? But literally, we would put those things in the middle. To me, that's what I view training events, what I view conferences as, is that, listen, there will be natural sags in our motivation, okay? For me, getting to these events, being around other people that are excited about this business or excited about life, gives me the opportunity to then have that little sag go away. And then I know I'm going to have another one, so I'll just put another one up when that comes. For me, I always focus on, you don't have to do it like me, but I'm just telling you, if I've never been to a single event that I invested in that I didn't get a return that was well above any number that I can ever think. It's got to be 5 to 10x on the money that we spend and the time we spend. And we all have these things going on where we're just too busy. We all think we got too much going on, or this is the wrong time to do that. I promise you, invest in those opportunities to go to these events. Every single time I've done it, I come back more motivated with ideas, and I execute on those things, and I grow my business. So I'd encourage you, what are they? We've got a ton of them. We're going to have our one locally here in January. I've already started lining up speakers. It's going to be tremendous, just like what we did last year where we had some speakers that I brought in. I'm going to bring in speakers. I'm going to try to do everything I can to give y'all as good of a conference as you'll go to anywhere in the world right here. That's going to be in January, possibly February. We're finalizing dates now. Also, National Convention is in Las Vegas at Caesar Palace this year. I promise you, we're going to have some good times out in Las Vegas. You know what I mean? We're going to learn a ton. We're going to have some good times too. Boomtown's coming up in April. The Boomtown Convention. Lori went for the first time this past year. Some of y'all have been. Jay's been. It is a collection of people from all kind of different brands, and every single person there, it is like Baller Central. Every single person there does it. Because they're not, we're a little unique in that we pay for Boomtown as a company for all y'all. Everybody there spends $50 to $150 to $200,000 themselves to have Boomtown and grow their team. So Boomtown's a great one. We are also, this is one of those, I was in Boston. Actually, Jay went with me. If you're at President's Circle or above, which is basically 175,000 GCI and above, there's an invitation one that Berkshire does. It's probably one of the best networking events you'll go to where you're talking to other agents from other places. That was in Boston a couple weeks ago. It was great. Got tons of ideas from that. This next year, they're actually doing it at the Big Island in Hawaii, so it'd be kind of cool, a little different. Let me just say this. I always set it up because I would just say, okay, and I'm just competitive. I'd say, hey, listen, if I sell this much, I'm going to go to this event. If I sell this much, I'm going to these events. If I sell this amount, I'm going to really invest back into myself and my business. So setting some goals there, it doesn't have to be something that's outrageous, but I would just encourage you, be around other people. Get involved with our accountability and collaboration groups. Listen, if you're not a part of that, we do them on Fridays. That group of people pulling for each other is not the norm in this business, y'all. We've got something that's unique. We've got a group of people that shares what's working for them. We've got a group of people that shares when they have struggles so that everybody realizes they're not alone. Get involved in that group. If you want to just sit in for one and just see what it's like tomorrow at 10 a.m., just let me know. It's a Zoom call. You can do it from wherever. Black your screen out if you don't want to see it. Whatever. And we'll let y'all take a look at that and see. But I would just encourage you to get involved. Now the last page, and I'm going to wrap up with this because I'm about out of words. My commitments and desired growth metrics for myself are. Now listen, we just talked about business, but let me just say this. If you succeed in work, in your work life, and you fail at home, you fail. Every single time. Now listen, there are seasons. This whole idea of work-life balance, let me just say, I think it's a little overblown. There are seasons where you have to be more focused on your family, and there are seasons when you have to be more focused on work, and finding that perfect balance, I'm still looking for it, just to be honest. But there are times where we can do those things in certain areas. So what I do is I break these down into personal goals. Spiritual for me, listen, that's just the foundation of who I am. It's one of those where I want to have spiritual goals where I am a better man, the man who I was created to be. I'm better this time next year than I am right now. So then I will have specific things that I'll be doing that I can track, that I can understand if I'm moving in that direction. My family, I want to make family priority. I kind of mentioned that about the relationship with my wife, the relationship with my kids, being that father and that husband and that son, because listen, some of us are in the season where being a son is even harder than being a parent right now. We're in those seasons where some of these things have to be priority. So whatever that is, having those goals set out there. For me, I've lost my dad in the last 2 years. I've got aging mom and stepfather. I'm really focused on my time with my family. I'm trying to be very purposeful on that. I'm writing those things down, because if I don't write them down, here's what happens is, I'll get to that next week. And then I can just tell you from experience, all of a sudden there is no more next weeks. So we've got to prioritize these things with our family. Physically, man, it ain't 75 easy, y'all. We doing 75 hard. I'm trying to get better. You know what I mean? Physically, here's the thing that happens every single morning. We walk in and we look in the mirror. The first thing we think, and it sets the tone for our entire day, is one of the two things. If you walk in like I did a few weeks ago and you're like, wow, really letting yourself go here. And all of a sudden, all day I'm thinking about those things. Listen, I walked in this morning. I don't look any different, but I walked in and I was like, ooh, I'm getting better. I done got 45 minutes worked out this morning. I done read my 10 pages. I've done it now for 3 days in a row. I got some momentum here, y'all. It ain't going to look like this for long. And it sets the tone for my entire day. Physically, what are you doing to get better? Have those goals that are out there. We got 5Ks here. There's apps for like run to 5K, walk to 5K, couch to 5K. You've got all these different, man, we live in one of the easiest places to be physical and get yourself in better shape than you've ever seen. So take advantage of those things. Knowledge, what is it you want to learn this year? This is another one of those. For me, I just have certain areas. Like for me right now, I'm just so, and y'all know I've been this way for a while, but now I just think it's really this way. We're seeing opportunities now with YouTube where we can do videos on properties, and for $50 we can get 5,000 views. And they're watching it for 5 to 6 minutes at a time. So I'm all in on trying to learn and understand YouTube where I can tell y'all those things. So what is it for you? Is it social media? Is it client appreciation events? Is it whatever? Is it learning about dinosaurs? Whatever it is for you, grow your knowledge, because when your mind's growing, I'll promise you your business is going to grow no matter what you're learning and what you're doing. And then relationships outside of family. Listen, I got some ride or dies. We've had some losses personally, very close to us in the last month or so. I'm valuing these relationships with people and friends more than I ever have right now. I'm going to be purposeful this year on making sure that I'm spending time with those folks. I'm checking in. I'm doing what I can to drive those relationships to be better than they were before. Wealth debt removal. I think you ought to have a number every single year. That I'm going to be better. I'm going to be less if I got debt. I'm going to be better if I'm working on wealth. Whatever it is, have a number that you're working towards and that you can track and see those things. And then service to others. Ultimately, it's saying about us. Ultimately, whether it's our business, whether it's everything we do, the reason we were given breath this morning is not so that we could go have a great day. It was given to us so that we could serve others. So what is it that for you? What is it that, the thing I've heard is what is it that breaks your heart? What is it that makes you laugh? And what is it that you dream about? What are those areas of life that are bigger than selling another house? What is it in the group that you've been gifted in? What is it for you? Is it that you want to serve underprivileged people? Is it that you want to give more of yourself and maybe you want to mentor somebody younger than you? Whatever it is, listen, when you focus on adding value to other people and we focus on servicing other people, I promise you everything else is going to take care of itself. So for me, this is what I use as a very, very small outline to formulate what I want to do next year. Now listen, I'll promise you I go a lot deeper than this personally, but I wanted to give you something that you could take and could get you an outline that you could work from. If you do this and you do those numbers, by the time you get done doing this, you'll know, okay, listen, if I do my 5, 10, whatever it is for you, conversations today, I know I'm closer to the goal I'm setting for down the road. Starting right now, because the things we're doing right now are the things that we're going to see results of come the first of the year. Thanks for watching the video. I specifically chose the video below for you because it builds on the one you just watched. I hope it's helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.